Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. This looks like a mess. This is everything I use on a regular basis that is sitting on the desk or just below the desk. Everything that I keep within arm's reach when I'm doing any kind of opal carving. So I've been pretty lazy with doing end of year updates, tracking things like this, and I really want to get back on top of it because I think now that I've been starting to do the jewelry, I've been learning that it's really confusing on what a standard person would use on a typical basis. So I want to show you everything that I commonly use and tools that you'll want to build up over time. You don't need all of them. These are a lot of the time, this is a lot of alternative stuff. There are a few things that I use every time. There's some that I mix in every now and then for special cases, especially if I'm filming videos for you guys where I want to show off like a lower budget option and stuff, but I keep them on the desk and I actually do use them myself all the time. So where do I start? I guess I'll start somewhere over here. You want something to be able to magnify stuff and have a look. I've got a new macro lens, so a lot of the time I use the macro lens and I just basically take it and zoom it all the way in. This isn't actually the macro lens, this is my standard kit lens, but what you'll want is something like this. It's a little bit overkill. I think this is a 10 and a 30 times magnification, or is it a 30 and 60? There we go, it's a 30 and 60. So the 30 and 60 is super overkill unless you're really like me and really pedantic. I will only use this when I'm doing a really high value piece. Otherwise, I'll use something more like this. So it's just a simple little magnifier. I think it used to be used on films or something. Someone's mentioned it in the comments before because I didn't know what it was, but I think it's for checking out film. Super useful because you just hold it up, hold the stone behind it. You can position it however you want in the light. It's just for a quick and easy look, but this is pretty much the equivalent of what my macro lens does now. So I just cheat and look at the stone in the camera and that does the exact same thing. This is how I check for all the pitting between each stage when it's dry. If we zoom back out again, we've got these two guys here. So my coarse set, so this is what I use to blitz through a lot of the rough material, a lot of the boulder material primarily. If I zoom in, you can see all the little black bands, so these are all 80 grits. And then this kit you'll see all the time, especially the yellows because I use them almost on every carving after using one of the coarser options. And both of these kits I sell on the website because they're incredibly handy and typically too expensive. The alternative that I don't keep on my desk are electroplateds, and you'll just keep burning through those and they're much cheaper, but it really does add up very quickly over time. Now to combo with the sintered diamonds, I've got the dressing stick. This one's getting pretty worn. I abused this one in a video that I did a little while ago, and every now and then I just scrub up a couple burrs and stuff. This looks like it's preparation for my hard resin burrs because they had a little bit of imperfections, which really needed the aluminium oxide dressing stick. Super handy, always on the desk. Now occasionally I'll be slicing, so I've got an assortment of these, but this is the biggest one and the most recently used one. You can see I hit a boulder opal with it very recently, but you can see also it uses it's blitzed through some Cubopedia as well with that white opal in it. So this is just for all of my slicing. I don't have a sintered diamond option, so this is that electroplated version. Pretty disposable, they don't last too long, especially if you spin them a little bit too fast, or you're working on a hard material like Mintaby, they will shred. But super helpful, and unless you've got a trim saw, it's definitely necessary. Then if I zoom out again and we focus in this central column, you can see here I've got my prototype resin burrs, the harder resin burrs. So these do that middle stage between the sintered diamonds and getting across to a polish. By the time you get to the end of it, it's basically a pre-polish stage. I've also got the exact same here with the Nova points. So these are the Diamond Pacific Nova points. This might be the last set I ever use because they seem really hard to get now. I used to be able to offer them on the store, but it's been really hard to restock and I just really haven't bothered to get them again. The other alternative are these guys right here. So Sandpaper drums. They go up to a really high grit, and at the highest grit, which is about 5,000 I believe, this one here, you actually end up with a pretty much polished stone. Unless it's a super high value stone, this polish will actually be good enough, and you can see I wear them right until they're dead and then peel back another layer. So yeah, a really good budget option, but I do hope that my hard resin burrs I can get manufactured because I think they might even be cheaper than this full set. And they work just as well, if not better. I guess the natural progression then is to check out these guys here. So my polishing powders. I've got 2 individual tubs off screen that just have 1 teaspoon of this mixed in with about a cup of water. Cerium oxide for any of the opal, fully opal exposed pieces. And then aluminium oxide, which I use on anything that isn't just fully fully silica based opal. So the ironstone and everything I polish with the aluminium oxide. There are occasions when, rather than using these and comboing it with the felt burrs, I will use these guys over here. So here we have a few diamond pastes and my own homemade dowel burrs. So a little piece of dowel wood on a screw mandrel. So this is what I do occasionally. Sometimes rather than using this, I'll be using toothpicks and just mounting those directly into my flex shaft and using the toothpick to get into really small cracks, and I can do that really easily with the diamond pastes. They're a little bit more aggressive than the polishing powders, but at the same time it's more of a mechanical polishing, so you do really need to give it a good scrub. Certainly another option, certainly something I keep on the desk. And we're making a mess of all of these tools. What else do I have? So I think things that people should always have: small scales with a little calibration weight just to make sure you're not going wild. Torch, this is Riley Gunn's gem light, which you'll see is been used so much that I've actually let it run out of batteries and I need to get that back on the charger. And then you can see here I've got a whole bunch of dopping options. So if we zoom in, you'll see I've got this Loctite super glue. It's a semi-thick one, but because it's gotten older and my shed gets really hot, it's actually gotten even thicker, and that's made it even better. So you want to get the thickest super glue you can get. I use that a fair bit, but a lot of the time this is more what I'm using. So I've cracked open a couple fresh tubes. This is the 5-minute epoxy. It'll hold much better, but you have to let it dry and harden overnight. And sometimes we don't have time for that, so the super glue comes in handy. Another option for an instant bond, green dopping wax. So I've got my little candle here. I've got my little tweezers because burning your fingers ain't great. Also inside I've got a little nail. I found that dopping with nails is actually quite good. You can heat the nail and then the wax will melt off the end and you can just slide the stone off. Or you just put it on wood or anything else and just chuck it in the freezer. You can also chuck this in the freezer and it will pop the stone off, no problems. And I combo that with a fairly scratch-free piece of metal, and that's for rolling out the wax onto the dopping sticks if I'm using things like chopsticks. It just pushes all the wax to the tip. Got a good video on that on the channel already, so feel free to check that out. Then I've got a bag of assorted different sizes. You can see sometimes I've got chopsticks that are all glued together, full glued together for a big piece of matrix opal or something. And I use these as my dop sticks. They're my classic dop sticks, and this is just a bag I have prepared on the desk at all times. And then we're running out of tools. I've got my little spoonie and poker. So I use this a lot of the time on Ethiopian opal to grind a lot of the crust off, and I also use this to mix up my current batch of metal oxide polishing powder in water. I also used to use this in the lab a lot during my PhD, and I've kept it ever since. And the final thing I've got in front of me are these two guys, little calipers. So I won't use this on many of my carvings, but whenever I'm doing a cab style carving and I really want to know exactly what the dimensions of the oval are, and I can't trust my stencils because they're cheap and garbage, I'll either measure the stencil or I'll measure the stone. Towards the end, I'll always measure the stone. These are my favorite ones. I also have these, which I bought when I first started out. You can see they're pretty old. They do get the job done. Both have millimeters and inches. This one just calls it meters, but I'm telling you that's not 10 meters just there. It's definitely 10 mil. Super handy to have. You can get away with just using a plastic ruler or something, but honestly, these are not very expensive. These are only a couple bucks, or at least they were when I bought them. If I zoom back out, that's it. That's all of my tools. You really don't need more than that. In fact, you don't even need all of that. I've got the kits on the website that basically include these sintered diamonds, felt burrs, your polishing powders, and sandpaper drums. All of these diamond paste things, that's all optional. All the dopping stuff, just get chopsticks or whatever you can find. Typically you can get them pretty much for free. And then you've got things like, if you can, track down the Nova points. They are certainly a good tool. Super handy. I owe a lot to these Nova points. I've been using them for many years. They've never really let me down. They're just really hard to get now. And then, of course, my prototype boys, which I really do want to get finalized. Well, I've got them finalized, I just can't afford to get them produced, which is something I didn't really think about at the time, but a little annoying. I've got a dream that I'll still get there though. And then the only other thing you need to think about is how you're going to dop. You can start learning the wax. It's a bit of an art. That's why I've got videos on this one focusing on it, because it does take a little bit of... there's a few tricks there that'll really help you along, but it does take a bit of practice. and sometimes you don't have time for that and you don't really want to, in which case super glue will save you and it'll get the job done. It doesn't hold quite as well, but it is instant. If you need something that's going to hold a lot better but you've got some patience to wait for it to dry, mix a 50-50 Araldite 5-minute epoxy and you're good to go. Be aware that 5 minutes means that it starts drying maybe at 5 minutes, depending on how you did your mix. But really, I give it a good 24 hours typically. So yeah, that's all I have. And all I ever really need can fit in this one shot here. And even that you can trim down to just this here. And these guys will get you through pretty much all of it. So I really hope that helps. There's not a lot of tools required for this. That's why I've got the beginner's kit, which just has the electroplated burrs instead of the sintered diamonds. And that's like a $50 kit on the website. The more complicated kit is closer to 200 bucks, but that's for tools that you're never going to be throwing out. And then yeah, you can just add slowly to your collection. Like any hobby, you can just keep adding and adding and adding, but the bare essentials really are not that much. So hopefully that fills you guys with confidence. And if you're on the verge of getting started, all I can say is just focus on getting the bare essentials and getting going. At least you'll know whether you like it or not. And if you don't like it, don't worry about it. Just give up on those tools. You'll probably worn them out anyway if you get the cheap set. No harm done. Move on to something else. But at least you can say you've tried. And who knows, it might hook you and you'll want to get a bunch more stuff. There's people that have way more stuff than what I've got here. I just don't have a lot of room and I stick to pretty much the bare essentials. Good luck, have fun. Let me know if you have any problems. Feel free to check out the website. And of course, if you need anything, just chuck comments down below and I'll see them 99.9% of the time unless YouTube does something funny. Description will have email and all that kind of stuff too, so no matter what, you guys can get to me and I'll have more videos coming anyway, so don't stress. I gotta clear this up and get back to carving. See you guys.